Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who concerns in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Amen. If you please honor our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Councilor Kennedy.
Here.
Councilor Leahy.
Here.
Councilor Laurie.
Here.
Councilor Martin.
Here.
Councilor Mendonça.
Here.
Councilor Mercier.
Here.
Mayor Murphy.
Here.
Councilor Noon.
Here.
9 present.
Thank you. I recognize at this time Councilor Martin and then Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I this time would ask to offer a moment of silence in darkened chambers in memory of Joseph Donahue, who died last week. I know many folks knew Mr. Donahue as a very capable attorney in the firm Donahue & Donahue, and I had the privilege to work with him for the last dozen or so years in our law firm. Mr. Donahue was a Lowellian through and through. He was a very charitable contributor to many local causes, but I think one of the things that he is most remembered for was his efforts to merge Lowell Tech and Lowell State Teachers College into the then University of Lowell, and we see today what that university has become, and he was there at the ground level to ensure that that happened. He was married to his wife Eileen for 46 years, who died in 1996, and he's survived by his wife Karen, his 3 sons, Joseph, Matthew, who served in the city council, and John, as well as his daughter Mary Ann. He will be truly missed.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd also like to offer a moment of silence in darkened chambers, actually for 2 individuals tonight. One was Margaret Mitchell, and both these individuals I had the pleasure over the years when I was a letter carrier to be their mailman. She was the daughter of the late Paul and Fadwa Salomon, a longtime member of St. Patrick's Church. For many years, she was a paraprofessional with the city of Lowell, and for many years, she worked with her son at his dentist office. She was the mother of the late Margaret McDivitt. Margaret McDivitt's still here, I'm sorry, and her husband, Billy McDivitt, Ann Majewski and her husband, Eddie, a son, John Mitchell, and his wife, Jennifer, a daughter-in-law, Pamela Mitchell, and many grandchildren. And she was her sisters, Florence Abraham and her husband, Freddie, Agnes Maggia Giacomo and her husband, John, and Teresa Mauricio. And let's see, she was the wife of the late John Mitchell. The other individual was Joyce Gilligan. She passed away, and actually she was buried today. She was the beloved wife of William Gilligan. She lived here in the city and for many years was employed by Sullivan Brothers. She was the daughter of late Thomas and Dorothy Callery and the loving daughter of Catherine Bryan Callery. She's survived by her children, William Gilligan and his wife Debbie, Tommy Gilligan and his wife Christine, Peter Gilligan, Alicia McQuaid and her husband John, Carrie Carroll and her husband Tim, Amy Fenwell and her husband Tom, and many, many grandchildren. She also leaves her sister Joan Bureau, her brother-in-law Charles Gallagher, and many nieces and nephews. She was also the sister of the late Robert Callery and sister-in-law of the late Mary Callery, Alicia Gallagher, and Edward Gilligan. May she rest in peace, and along with Margaret Mitchell.
Thank you. If you'd all please rise in a moment of silence in darkened chambers. May they rest in peace. Next, we have under Mayor's Business a proclamation for the March of Dimes, recognition of October 3rd as Robert Ziggy Burns Day in the city of Lowell. We did announce this at the last meeting, but no representatives were able to be here. So I'll just read the last part of the proclamation on behalf of the City Council. Throughout his adult life, Ziggy has championed and supported the March of Dimes in their mission to improve the health of mothers and babies by preventing birth defects, premature birth, and infant mortality. For this dedication, Ziggy has been named the March of Dimes Citizen of the Year and will be honored as such on October 3rd. So therefore now, I, Patrick O'Murphy, Mayor of the City of Lowell, do hereby proclaim October 3rd, 2013 as Robert Ziggy Burns Day in the city of Lowell, Massachusetts, and wish to present this proclamation at this time.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the City Council. My name is Sue Zakra. I am the chair of the board for the March of Dimes in the northeast section of Massachusetts, and I also sit on the state board. We want to thank you for declaring October 3rd Ziggy Burn Day in the city of Lowell. Lowell native Robert Ziggy Burns, as many of you know, is a polio survivor who has dedicated years of service to the March of Dimes. This is his way of giving back to an organization that was able to pay all of his medical bills as a child while he was being treated at Boston Children's Hospital. On Thursday, October 3rd, the March of Dimes, in their 75th year, will be honoring Ziggy with the Citizens of the Year Award. We ask that you help us honor Ziggy and the millions of babies each year that benefit from the work of the March of Dimes. The event is almost sold out, so purchase your tickets today by visiting marchofdimes.org/mass. And as the mayor so greatly expressed, the mission of the March of Dimes is to prevent premature birth, birth defects, and infant mortality through community programs, advocacy, research, education, and family support. 76 cents of every dollar raised by the March of Dimes goes directly to our mission. Thank you again for taking the time to honor Ziggy for all of his accomplishments and for the March of Dimes.
Thank you. Next, we have a citation recognizing CrossFit Lowell as new business. On behalf of the City Council, be it hereby known to all that the City of Lowell and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts hereby welcomes CrossFit Lowell and its owner Gina Tacconi Moore to Foundry Ave. The gym provides those who live and work in the city a place to get moving and exercise despite their age or level of ability as they move toward a more healthy lifestyle, a goal the city has for all of its citizens. And the entire city of Lowell extends its deepest wishes to CrossFit Lowell for great success, given that day, 12th of September 2013. Congratulations. Next, we have a citation recognizing George Nikolakakis from George's Deli. On behalf of the City Council, I offer a citation, be it hereby known to all that the City of Lowell and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts hereby offers its sincere gratitude and congratulations to George Nikolakakis for feeding the residents of Lowell, both with the best torpedoes in the town, as well as through financial and moral support to the community for 5 decades. The entire city of Lowell extends its deepest appreciation to George for giving 5 decades of dedicated service to the community, given this 24th day of September 2013. Congratulations.
wonderful. Congratulations. Congratulations, darling. Very good. All right, you deserve it.
Oh, over here. Oh,
These must have been all the people behind.
thank you, the city of Lowell, all the people of Lowell. For 50 years, take care of our business, and I love all of them. And here tonight is a lot of people who work together for so many years. They work for the city hall, some of them too. I'm appreciated for everything. I never expect something like this. Thanks to you people, and thanks to Lowell people, and thank you for everything. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was beautiful.
Hi, my name is Sandra McNamara. I'm the president of Centerville Community Coalition. And as a retired health inspector, I just want to say, if all my inspections were as good as theirs, I'd have an easy job. And I just want to thank them. I'd just like to thank them for being a great partner with the city of Lowell in any circumstance. Thanks.
Thank you. Congratulations. And next we have, under the city clerk's portion of the agenda, minutes of the city council meeting of September 10th, the environmental subcommittee of September 12th, neighborhood subcommittee of September 17th, and the special meeting of September for acceptance.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to ask for one change.
Council Lori?
Thank you. Under the moments of silence, it said, request a moment of silence in Darken's chamber for Pat Wren. It was Pat Britton. So if we could make that change. Thank you.
Entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended. So moved by Council Noon, seconded by Council Kennedy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. I'd entertain a motion at this point to take item number 8, I believe, out of order. Entertain a motion to take item number 8.
Yes, so
out of order.
moved.
So moved by Council Mercius, seconded by Council Lori. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. It's a vote to authorize the city manager to execute a memorandum of agreement with UMass Lowell regarding stormwater management and future sewer separation project in the neighborhood of Pawtucket Street, Salem Street, and Merrimack Street in the proximity of University Crossing. Motion to waive the full reading by Council Noon, seconded by Council Mendonça. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. In City Council vote. Authorizing the city manager to execute a memorandum of agreement with University of Massachusetts Lowell relative to the stormwater management and future sewer separation project in the neighborhood of Pawtucket Street, Salem Street, and Merrimack Street in the proximity of University Crossing within the city of Lowell. What's the wish of the committee?
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Council Martin, seconded by Council Lori. Any discussion? Council Elliott.
Could we have Mr. Young just give us a brief explanation about this? I know he's here.
Actually, Council, this is a very favorable agreement with the city. As you know, we worked in conjunction with UMass Lowell on some past sewer separation projects for cost sharing. This goes above and beyond that cost sharing in that because the area that we're looking at separating, they're doing work already on their upgrades for their infrastructure. We are allowing them to discharge their stormwater from their site into ours, but for a fee. And this really is precedent setting, and it's a good advantage for the city.
So it's a set fee?
It's based upon the amount of runoff that's generated, and it's based it's based upon the Lowell sewer rate.
Okay.
So we calculate how much water would be running off from the surface that we've targeted, times the sewer rate, and that's what we charge them.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Mendonça.
Along that same line, but this is, I believe, not in perpetuity. This is until the city separates the sewer from the stormwater?
Yes, we're looking at doing potentially a project in that area if we get the CSO funding.
So when we separate it, then
Yes,
that arrangement will end?
yes.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Well,
Councilor Martin.
I'd just like to comment, I know Chancellor Meehan had a column in the Lowell Sun not that long ago saying that the partnerships between the university and the city had never been stronger. And these things, as mundane as they may seem, are important to development projects and important to get done for development projects to proceed in a timely way. I think this is an example of that cooperation. I know the folks, sewer department, stormwater, have, rules and regulations they need to enforce. They need to minimize discharges into the ground, into the river, and this seems like an innovative way to get this done in a way that keeps the project moving forward. So I think it's certainly a good piece of work on behalf of our city departments here and the university, and evidence of the cooperation that's taken place.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy. Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Mendonça.
Yes.
Councilor Mercier.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Noon.
Yes.
8 yeas.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Laurie.
Thank you very much. I see a lot of people here for if we could suspend the rules and take item 15 up under general petitions. I see there's quite a few people here. If we could move that up and move that along the agenda.
Motion to suspend the rules by Councilor Laurie.
Second.
Second by Councilor Mercia. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Miscellaneous general petition. Daily General Contracting Incorporated requests the City Council provide an easement to maintain the wall along the right-of-way at 135 Beacon Street. There are 5 registered speakers. Mr. Clerk.
Anne Marie Page.
Good evening. My name is Anne Marie Page. I reside at 26 Fremont Street in Lowell. I sit on the board of the Centerville Neighborhood Action Group, and I'm the president of the Lowell Citywide Neighborhood Council. We seem to have a little problem here. Not a big problem, just a little one. According to the City of Lowell site, the engineering division, this division is responsible for civil engineering and division support, including construction management, administration services for all paving projects. The division is comprised of engineers working on projects for streets and sidewalks, pavement management, private street conversion, bridge maintenance, repair, construction, flood control, permitting, and other public works issues. The division provides construction management and administration services for many of the city public construction projects, such as the reconstruction of the city streets and sidewalks. The division also reviews plans for residential and commercial developments, verifying they are designing their projects to adhere to the most recent laws that pertain to stormwater management. This is a small portion of the responsibilities of the engineering division. Now, usually we're here because we're in a panic, because a developer is doing something and we're trying to say, don't do this in my neighborhood. This is the opposite. Now, as I understand it, the city's position on this one is, the way I understand, the city does not want to be responsible for the upkeep and repair of another sidewalk. If I'm wrong, please correct me. I own my sidewalk in front of my house only because the house is over 100 years old. And I found that out many years ago, strictly by accident. And that's okay with me. Lisa DeMeo is our city engineer, very good engineer. And I think what she's thinking is the last thing she needs is another sidewalk she has to worry about. And there's a small little retaining wall. And when I say little wall, I mean little wall. This wall's probably 20 inches high if it's that tall. We're not talking about the wall of China here. This little thing just goes along the edge, and what it's doing is it's holding the hill on the side of the building, because if there's heavy rain, the hill's gonna wash down, it's gonna wash away either a sidewalk or land and out onto the street. This will hold the land a little bit, and somebody could put plants on it, a planter or something like that, make it look even nicer than it does now. But now we actually will have a sidewalk there. We never had a sidewalk before. You didn't have to pay for it, I didn't have to pay for it, the developer paid for it. The city does not want to accept the sidewalk, it shouldn't have to accept the sidewalk. It should then be the responsibility of the property owner. It's on the property owner's land. If it was city land, who's been taking care of it all this year? Because nobody else has been up there that I've seen. So, what do we have in our neighborhood now? We have a small wall to hold the land from washing out onto the street whenever there's a heavy rain. Maybe the owner, who's here tonight and will be speaking to you, may put some plants or some planters, some flowers, right? Anything that would keep that land from washing down and over out into the street. We have a sidewalk, which we never had there before. A safe place for a small child to ride a tricycle, or a mother to push a baby in a carriage, or even for a neighbor to go out for a walk, not on the street, and Beacon Street is a busy street, but on a sidewalk. The neighbors are happy, the people are happy. If you're looking for unhappy, we can give you a list over in Centerville. This is not on our unhappy list. And if you're looking for bad projects, I'm sure we can give you a list for that too. But this is not one of those bad projects. And I believe when this project first hit the floor about 4 years ago, I believe in the initial planning, it was suggested by the engineering department, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it was suggested maybe a sidewalk would be nice. You can check the minutes from 4 years ago. But the planning board said that's not necessary. They didn't say, no, don't do it. They just said it was not necessary. So here we have a responsible developer that has spent more of his own money, at least $20,000, to improve the property, and we want to give him a hard time. No danger to the neighborhood, not ugly to the neighborhood. Maybe all the developers should put in new sidewalks when they work on their projects. I don't know. But this is a good project for this neighborhood. The neighbors are happy. We need to spend more time on those that are not good developers, and we do not care about the neighborhood at all. Those are the ones to worry about. This is not one of those projects, and we hope you will agree with the neighbors. Thank you kindly for your time.
Heidi Miller.
Hi, I'm Heidi Miller, 124 Beacon Street. I stand here before you tonight to support Mr. Daly's project on the corner of 3rd and Beacon Street. It is a new section of sidewalk, but more importantly, the retaining wall. Without the retaining wall, there would not be a sidewalk. 4 years ago, I attended a zoning board meeting for Mr. Daly's plans. We, the neighbors, asked for that sidewalk to be continued to the corner. And when the construction started, we were pleased. This section of the road is dangerous. Cars travel up and over 3rd, or up and over Beacon on 3rd, and it is the blind spot. Cars can't see you. There's been many accidents. A kid was hit on a bike there. So we need the sidewalk. So I'm here to support Mr. Daly's project and hope you have special considerations for the project. Thank you.
Marie Brown. Claudia Gordon.
Good evening. I'm Claudia Gordon. I actually am the resident at 135 Beacon Street. My husband Bob and I just bought it about a month ago. It's our first home. and we're trying to deal with this situation that has come up, actually really started happening between our signing a PNS and the actual signing of the home. So as you can imagine, this whole thing is a little overwhelming and surprising. I'll keep it short. The only thing that I want to express to you tonight is the issue of the structural integrity of my building if the city insists on removing the wall. I'm giving you a little picture. So we went out and did a lot of measurements, and luckily enough, we actually have a few engineers, mechanical engineers, civil engineer, construction project managers that we know and are in the family. And the thing that we continually kept hearing was 4 feet. We need 4 feet of our foundation buried below to maintain its structure for frost heaves. We're already infringing on the 4 feet from the side where the wall is right now, so pushing it back is not an option. Sorry, multiple notebooks. All right. So this is my attempt at drawing to scale. And as you can see, right now I about have 66 inches below the ground, roughly 5 feet. That's good, that's structural, that's sound. We have just over 5 feet to the wall. The bigger issue comes in, my chimney has a separate foundation. You can see from this dotted line, it's already under 4 feet to this wall. So moving this back any further actually really infringes on the frost lines, could give me problems 5-10 years down the road. And the idea of removing it at all, that really is completely unacceptable, because when you would possibly remove that wall, obviously, the dirt is going to fall away until it's 45 degrees or less. It's going to do what it does in nature and everywhere else. So when that dirt starts to move down, I am now below 4 feet, obviously, in the entire side of that foundation, significantly below 4 feet if the chimney foundation even continues down to the basement level, which we don't know it does right now. And then, yeah, I will have issues with frost eaves. I will have issues with possibly where the water goes. I may already have issues with water changing because we've taken away that dirt. So I'm in support of keeping the sidewalk. I see what it does for the community, and I see the neighbors' support for it. I have no problem with that. But if the city wants to pursue that project instead of putting all the dirt back, it has to be done responsibly and not to damage the integrity of my house. So that's all. Is there any questions? Thank you.
Dave Daly.
Members of the council, my name is David Daly. I reside at 40 Lillian Street in Lowell, Massachusetts. In 2009, prior to this project, when we were in the design phase, we did what we always do, what I would quote as a responsible developer, and we had some neighborhood meetings, which many of these people attended. And one of the things these neighbors really stressed was the fact that they wanted that sidewalk on 3rd Street. When we went to the planning board meeting in 2009, we did go over the same issues with the planning board that she just laid out in front of you, and the fact that if we had put that wall back 3 feet, as Mr. Mayo wants us to at this point, there would have been some serious structural integrity issues. The building that is located at 135 Beacon Street, that sits on the corner of this property, was built in 1875. That foundation is more than 130 years old. As she said, anywhere from 4 feet away from that would have caused some serious issues. When we also started, when we got approval for this project in 2009, we renovated that house. It was an old mansard that was in really tough condition. I think everyone can say, at least the neighbors can say, that we brought it back to life. And we didn't remodel it, we restored it. And it's a thing of beauty as you come up 3rd Street now. Something I'm actually really proud of as a generally a new construction contractor, is something that we took the time to really restore it back to its origin. Subsequent to that, after we finished that project, it was sold. We built a single-family house at 131 Beacon Street, and then the market went somewhat soft. So we had a duplex lot that was approved at during that planning board process, and we held off for the last couple of years. We commenced construction on that back in, I guess now it was probably fall of last year, and I have a number of other projects going on, so when my guys weren't busy, they'd go back and do that. It was my own project, so there was a month or two where we wouldn't even work on it. However, early this summer, we decided we had to commence with the sidewalk work in the wall. So we went down and we met. My contractor requested the plan from my engineer. They worked together on a continuous basis. I was not involved in that conversation, or there was emails. He received the plan from him that showed the sidewalk, that at the time the planning board, and I want to make this very clear, as she did a couple minutes ago, they said that it was not required. They didn't say we didn't have to do it. So we met with my contractor, Butch Newton, met with the engineering department on 2 to 3 occasions. We went over the fact that we also pulled a permit, a street opening permit as well, and we went over the fact that we were going to do the handicap ramps. If you can see the pictures here, I have some pictures actually that are over here. If I can approach the council and pitch, like some pretty good pictures. This has a better view of what's going on. It shows the both handicap ramps. So during the course of installing the handicap ramps, the engineering department came out and inspected the handicap ramps. They also inspected the curbing that we put in to make sure it was up to the V4 code that was required at the time. Then we did all the final grading for the sidewalk, and we ordered a final inspection just before we paved for the sidewalk. And it was at that time that it was noted that this wall was on city land. Well, I got to be honest with you. I'm still befuddled by the fact that the city allows me to put in a 75-foot, it's actually going to be about 90 feet, I think, of sidewalk on their land, but they didn't let me apparently allow us, and I still haven't seen the regulation, that allows us to put in a small wall to retain the grade as she just indicated, so that we wouldn't have any issues with runoff or any other issues pertaining to structural integrity of that foundation. So it was noted at the time that it was on city property, and Joe, who from the engineering office, met with Butch, my subcontractor, and they came back, and Lisa DeMeo gave us 2 options. She said we can, 1, remove the wall, or 2, we can move it back 3 feet. Well, again, not to rehash what she just indicated, but if we move this back 3 feet, the building's going to collapse, and it's going to be on me. So that wasn't an option to me. And B, a second option was if we take the wall down, as you can see from that grade, you're going to have a 1 or 2 foot sidewalk, which isn't a regulated sidewalk at this point. It has to be 5 feet wide. So I said no to both of them. And then we went on for a couple weeks and trying to figure out ways to make this thing work. I met with a number of the neighbors who came out and expressed their concern that they heard that they might be losing their sidewalk. And I made it clear to them I was going to do everything in my power as a responsible developer to ensure that that sidewalk stays. So subsequently, I was told by Joe that there was a third option. And this came a couple subsequent to the 3 to 4 weeks after we discussed the first 2 options. And it was that I could petition the city council to maintain the sidewalk or the easement for the wall. So we did that. I submitted that on September 5th, and I am before you tonight. Obviously, this is an issue, as I just looked at and heard about the stormwater agreement that the city made with UMass Lowell. I can't help but scratch my head, because I can tell you what's probably occurred over the last month or two, that members of that administration and UMass Lowell and members of this administration had some pretty good conversations, and they said, you know what, we can help you guys, we can help each other out here. So they came up with an idea to help each other out, and the city's going to make some money, and UMass Lowell is going to have a great stormwater runoff plan, and guess what, everyone wins. The problem in this case here is no one from the administration reached out to me or these neighbors. No one tried to put this to rest or try to address this issue prior to having to come to the city council tonight for us, these people to come up here, and you guys on obviously a very busy night for you guys, to come in and try to work out an issue that could have been worked out and resolved if certain members of this administration had come forward and said, how can we work with you to solve this problem? It did not happen. And I'm here to say that that's what I'm most disappointed in tonight. And if I didn't stick up for these neighbors, then I would have taken the $8,000 worth of block, I would have put it in my dump truck, and I would have used it in another job. And guess what? Guess who would have lost? The neighbors. But no, I stuck up for the neighbors, and I'll stick up for her again by coming up here and taking my own time and to say that this shouldn't have happened. Tommy Golden, the state rep, called me on Friday, and he said, David, what is going on up in the hill? I said, what? He's like, that development you're doing? He said, I'm getting all these calls from these constituents. They're really alarmed by the fact that they might lose their sidewalk. And they said, you're with them. I said, I'm 100% with them, Tommy. He said, well, let me call the city manager, and let me see what we can do about this. So we called the city manager, and he explained the situation. He talked to the city manager. Never heard back from the city manager. I have never heard from anyone. Instead, you know what the city did? The city posted a response on a blog. On a blog. Instead of, now this has been going on for a month. I've not got a call from Mr. Marchand. I haven't got a call from Adam Back, who I've had really good relationships. I have to say, the DPD has done a spectacular job. And it's just really didn't fall into his responsibility. But I didn't hear from anyone. I didn't hear from the engineering director. No one. To say, let's sit down and figure out a way to make this work. And then none of us would have been here. Well, guess what? He didn't get a call back either, and here we are tonight, sitting before you with a bunch of obviously concerned neighbors and homeowners to think that they might lose their sidewalk. We shouldn't be here. I'm saying my object of coming before you tonight is the fact that this administration, working in a manner that's more of a facilitator than an obstructionist, is a better way to doing business than working the way they have. Because I'll tell you, it accomplished absolutely nothing tonight. And it's too bad that we all have to stand here before you and on a busy night to say, can you please save $25,000 worth of work that I put into the city? I'm handing you $25,000 worth of sidewalk and wall that's never gonna have to be maintained. That's gonna, as you come up 3rd Street, as anyone has been there, the cars fly up over the Beacon Street, and now these kids can walk on a sidewalk, and it's gonna be safer, and it looks great, and everyone's happy. But no, we have to come up here and express our position to this council because this administration failed. That's all I have to say.
You will now hear from Mr. Bakey and then Ms. Lisa DeMayo.
Thank you.
No, I'm recognizing Mr. Bakey, and then I'll recognize councilors afterwards.
Thank you, and good evening, and I certainly thank everyone who came out this evening. I am somewhat surprised only by the fact that maybe I'm the only one in this, but I don't really see any controversy here, because I actually think everyone is actually on the same side in terms of what should happen. And I'm a little surprised by the characterization of the administration from the last speaker, who I agree we have had a very good relationship in the past. Because in fact, actually, I believe it was the city engineers, even according to his speaking, that suggested the very solution as the logical solution to this problem that is before you this evening, that he's advocating for, the neighbors are advocating for, and I will join them in advocating for. That the proper solution to this is for them to obtain the easement that they are requesting the city council approve. And really, the issue here is not one of should there be a sidewalk on this street at this point. In fact, when it was an issue of that, the DPD advocated very strongly and encouraged that there be a sidewalk during the planning board review. But at this point, we are very appreciative that the developer has chosen to construct a sidewalk there. We agree that the neighbors want to see a sidewalk there, and we think it's a good idea to have a sidewalk there. So everyone's pretty much in agreement on that. And we also appreciate, after the analysis that the city engineers did in conjunction with the developer of looking at the other alternatives, that it is not practical to relocate the retaining wall, and therefore that is why the city engineers suggested to Mr. Daly that the solution is to seek an easement. Because the only actual issue underlying all of this is that the retaining wall was constructed within the city right-of-way without the proper legal rights to do that. And this easement that they are requesting provides those legal rights and frankly resolves the issue. So what I believe, what the city engineers had done with Mr. Daley was actually work collaboratively with him to find a solution, suggested the solution to him. He has now brought that forward. I think everyone, at least on this side of the railing, is in agreement that that's a good solution and we should proceed with it. So I guess I would hope that this would be able to be referred to the law department to prepare the necessary vote, which would then come back to you all for consideration, and I would encourage you to adopt it, and that would resolve the matter. But I'm happy to address if anyone has any questions about the city's role in this or perspective or anything else.
Councilor Laurie and then Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think what Mr. Bakey has said, and I had called earlier on this when I had found out earlier last week, and I was going to make the motion that we send the issue to the law department to draw up the easement, and it would satisfy, I think, everyone here. I make the motion, we send it to the law department.
We
It's a motion.
discussion for this council floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Motion by Councilor Laurie,
To send it
second
to
by
the law.
Councilor Mercia. Councilor Mercia.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could suspend the rules and allow
For what purpose?
a person to speak that hadn't registered to speak on this very issue.
Motion
Sandra McNamara.
Motion to suspend the rules by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Ms. McNamara.
Hi, thank you. Again, my name is Sandy McNamara. I am president of Centerville Community Coalition. And I did go up to visit the wall yesterday, and in the process while we were there, being handicapped myself, I was thrilled with the issues that he had put in handicap ramp, not only on the side of the sidewalk, but across the street. And the second issue was, while we were there all chatting, a man came up the street with this little push carriage with a toddler in it. And we're on the side of, if you come up, like he says, over that hill, and you don't stop, we're all mowed down. There's no question about it. And can't move quickly, couldn't move the carriage quickly. It could be a disaster. So my feelings is, I believe for the safety of that situation in that area is, let him go ahead. It's keeping myself and kids off the street. Thank you.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't need this paper to review what took place there. I actually went there myself because I was suspecting a 10-foot retaining wall, a sidewalk that was wide enough to just fit a skateboarder. And when I got there and I saw that was once a dilapidated, neglected building transformed with an overhaul to magnificent beauty, and saw a scaled step retaining wall and a beautiful proportioned sidewalk enough to fit probably 2 baby carriages, I said, what is the big to-do? Having said that, I want to reiterate what the person that had to come down on his own time to explain and reassure the neighbors that he was just trying to help out and make a better portion of the world a lot better. And that's what I saw. And I want to just state for the record that crime and violence is prevalent in neighborhoods, and that's probably the #1 concern. But time and time again, we hear, what do you want in your neighborhood? Well, you know what they say? I want to take the dilapidated buildings and transform them into beauty and give people a place to live in a reasonable setting and a comfortable quality of life. And then we have developers that try to do that, and there's no cooperation. And I'm very offended by this, because we should have a policy here to let's make it happen. What can we do to achieve that goal? And I don't see that happening when someone has to come here and take their time out of their life to not only spend $20,000 to $25,000 and make things better and state accommodations for handicap accessible, but to be burdened by coming here to explain why did they do that. Let's not say you can't, let's say how can we get it done? Let's get it done. piece by piece to make this a better city, to put people in it. And that's what I say, that's what it should be all about. And you can come to the podium and try to give your remarks and this and that, but we have developers that are professional that I don't think they want to hurt the city. They know it's better than I know to make that structure structurally sound by putting this particular retaining wall in. That's what I say. How hard is it to try to be customer developer friendly? That's what I say. That's the goal here, and I don't see it. And I think we should change our ways about doing business so Lowell developers say, gee, we don't want to even bother with that in the city. We have much red tape. We go outside of the city. I don't want to hear that. These are business people that help to make this a better city. We ought to start right here and now to make it change.
Any further discussion? Councilman Johnson and Councilor Kennedy.
Yes, I did receive a call last week about this, and I was asked to go by the site, which I did, and what I saw there was, as the pictures show, a sidewalk that's graded and ready to be paved, and for all intents and purposes, it looks fine for use. But the issue is not the sidewalk itself. The issue was the retaining wall, and the fact that it was built on the city property, not on the private property. So a mistake was made along the way. And now we need to find a way to rectify it because of what's already been stated by those, the proponents of it, in order to keep the wall and the sidewalk. And of course, the engineers did what they had to do. They can't authorize, they're not authorized to say, yeah, you can build on city property. It's going to have to come before this board for the easement. And I don't believe there'll be a problem with it. This is something that will improve the neighborhood, but it's a process we have to take in order for it to be properly approved. A question I have through the mayor to the solicitor is, when we grant this easement, who should we be granting it to? Because clearly, at least this part of the wall is another property owner. So my question is, if we're probably going to refer this to the law department to draw up the proper vote, is, I mean, do we do it to the developer and he assigns it, or do we do it to the current property owner, assuming they're willing?
Right. At this point, we would likely do it with the current property owner, and we would be working actually in conjunction with the city engineer's office for any of these types of requests to review an easement, and then we would report back to the council the details of the easement, including who the easement would run to.
Okay. Well, it was good to have the actual property owner here in support of this, because now it'll be easier to work out the details. Yep. So again, I'm supportive of keeping the work that's been done. But I mean, other developers need to know, be careful where you're building things, that it is on the actual developed property and not on the public way.
That's right. To be clear, there's nobody in the city, absent the council, that would have the authority to correct the mistake that had been made other than the city council. So the only way of correcting it in this manner is exactly the process that's being followed this evening.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. White.
Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had an opportunity to go up there on Christian Hill over the weekend, and actually I drove by 2 times because I thought I missed it. I thought I couldn't understand what the issue was, but I didn't. And I think that, I mean, it seems pretty simple that the sidewalk should go in. And I think that if it requires an easement, that's fine, and that seems to be what we're going to do. But there have been other instances over the past year and a half when there's little corrections or easements that need to be made or whatever, and usually those are generated from the Division of Planning and Development or the administration. In this instance, it's a little bit different. We don't have that. In this instance, it's the contractor that has to come before the city council. And I guess I have to think that that Councilor Mercier's remarks are correct. It shouldn't be that way. We should be a little bit, the administration should be a little friendlier with developers, with every developer, not just certain developers. And I don't think that probably happened in this instance. But rather than to go, make a big deal about it at this point, I think everybody seems to be on board on all sides, and I think probably a majority of the city council that, that the easement, we'll vote on the easement and then everything will be satisfied. It's just that I think what makes this a little bit different from other similar instances is that this request is not coming from the administration.
Any further discussion? Council Leahy.
Thank you. Yeah, my thoughts too are that, I'm looking at, there's good people that come down here tonight and they're visibly upset. We have a letter in our hand that's dated September 5th, yet an email we get dated September 20th says that this hasn't been presented to anybody. I mean, that's what the problem is. So I'm glad there's a solution, but there's a problem with the paperwork. I mean, September 5th, September 20th, we're all here, everybody has to come down. That's the problem, and it needs to be corrected. Thank you.
Motion to suspend the rules by Council Laurie, seconded by Council Leahy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Mr. Daly.
Thank you, Mayor. That's the point I wanted to make, is the fact that I submitted this easement request on September 5th. I gave it to the city clerk, and we talked subsequent to that, and he informed me that was going to be going on before the city council on the September 24th. And then, again, City Councilor Mercier raises a point, is the fact that, like I said earlier in the evening here, when the UMass Lowell did a collaborative effort with the city, there was no collaboration here. There was no reaching out. There was no outreach to me. This became contentious. It didn't have to be. All they had to say, and I'm not blaming this on Mr. Backey. I've had a lot of very positive experiences with him, and I don't say it's his responsibility. I don't know if it's the engineering department. I don't know. But none of them reached out to me and said, you know what, this is a good job. There was some mistakes made by both departments. We went over this project with them in early June when we were starting it. They were well aware of what we were doing there. And instead of saying, this is a good thing, you're adding good infrastructure, it's not a big deal, we'll file an easement, it would be, no offense, a rubber stamp by the city council, no one would have to show up here. Instead, it got contentious. And my problem is, that instead of calling me Tommy Golden back on Friday, the city releases that statement that says, I never filed an easement, after I filed the easement 3 weeks before. So everyone in the public saying, Dave, these people were calling me up, you never filed an easement? I said, I filed an easement. Finally, subsequent, someone had to respond on another blogger and say, hey, I looked at the city council agenda and he did file an easement. So once again, I'm just frustrated, and I hate to say it, sometimes I can't help but think, is it who I am? Is who I represent? I don't know. I try to do a really good job in this city. Every project I do gets accolades. I've got awards from this city. But lately, it's like they'd rather be an obstructionist than facilitators. That doesn't work. This is city right now. I'm telling you right now. I've worked in coastal towns. I've done building out in Dunstable and great towns. And they are facilitators. I'm telling you right now, the city administration, I'm not saying the city administration, I'm saying certain departments would rather give you a harder time than work with you. And that's unfortunate. And that's not the way it should be. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to make the same point Councilor Leahy did. We get an email in the afternoon on the 20th stating, what the entire issue is. Yet this letter is dated the 5th. I guess my question is, a street permit opening was issued, and wasn't this identified at that particular point in time? I would think the city would want a sidewalk. I was up there. I took a look at it, and all of the factors that the neighborhood leaders mentioned about safety and traffic coming over and up on Beacon Hill, it's blind. It's like a blind drive. I can clearly understand why a sidewalk is needed and necessary. It didn't cost the city a dime. and I agree with some of my colleagues. It is, to me, not so much the fact that it's about an easement, it's about who's putting the easement in and what set of rules are we going to use for what developers, and that's where it's wrong. This should have been settled well before, and this is a very good project. If you haven't seen it, go up and look. This is what we want. We want developers working with the city to make sure we can get as much as we can from the city if a project is going in and we can satisfy some safety issues. That's what it's all about. I can't fathom there not being a sidewalk there. There was a curb cut. The curb cut was moved. City engineers were up there inspecting it more than once, and then all of a sudden there's a big brouhaha over an easement. It's wrong. That's not the message that we should send, not to Mr. Daley or any other developer, quite frankly. Reaching out, speaking to them ahead of time and coming up with a solution is the way to go. What I don't understand is there was a curb there before, there was no sidewalk, and now there is. So we want someone to move an easement, that is an option? That's not an option. That's like an ultimatum. A sidewalk belongs there. It should have been a requirement on whatever plan that was submitted, because if you go up there and look, and if you see the grade that would go from the house to the not sidewalk, curb cut. It was just a curb. There's really no place to go. And who was maintaining it up to that point? I'm going to presume it had to be the previous homeowner, not the city. So, it's wrong that this has been made political. The right thing to do is just to grant the easement and move on to other business. Thank you.
Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I put the motion a few minutes ago. I'd just like to point out, we did get this letter, with all due respect to Mr. Daley, and I don't know if he's aware of our timelines. The letter was obviously either mailed or brought to the clerk's office on 9/5. It was accepted by the clerk on September 6th at 2:10 p.m., which is too late to put it on the September 10th agenda. It has to be in by noon or 11 o'clock, I believe. So the next meeting after the 10th was today, the 24th. We meet every 2 weeks. I just noticed the stamp on here now. So I guess the clerk's office got it at 2 o'clock. The next available meeting is today. And I know for a developer that's not good, because time is money. But if we had met on the 17th, we would have had it on the 17th agenda. But I'm sorry, I'm looking at this and I'm listening to the debate, and I know it's not good for the developer or any businessman, because now he has to wait another 2 weeks to proceed. But the fact is, this was accepted by the clerk's office at 2:10. It's too late for the agenda on the 10th. It's on the very next agenda on the 24th, though I know it doesn't do the developer any good. It's time is money for those guys. And, but to me, it looks like it hit the right date according to the schedule for the clerks. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Turning to the regularly scheduled portion of the agenda, we have under unfinished business an ordinance, amend the zoning for Rogers Street to extend the TMU district. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title. In City Council ordinance. An ordinance amending the code of the City of Lowell, Massachusetts with respect to Chapter 290 thereof entitled Zoning by extending the traditional mixed-use zoning district to include all parcels located in Lowell with frontage on the northerly side of Rogers Street, as well as the entirety of 39 Whitehead Avenue, 550 Douglas Road, and 458 Wentworth Avenue in Lowell, all of which are presently zoned regional retail. I'd entertain a motion to refer to the Planning Board for report and recommendation, and for the Council public hearing on November 12th, 2013 at 7 p.m. So moved by Councilor Leahy, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those on the motion, Councilor Mendoza.
The last time this was before us, I believe there were requests made to get the economic impacts on the current property owners. I don't see any information about that, so if that could just be provided at that time or before that public hearing time, so we could have it. And I would assume that all the property owners affected and possibly abutters would be notified of any hearings that are held, because that was one of the complaints they had last time this came before us, is that they had not been notified. So I just asked that be done.
Mr. Bakey. Mr. Bakey.
Thank you. Couple reactions to that. First of all, without question, we will make sure that for both the planning board hearing and the council hearing, in the case of the council hearing, it was done the last time around, but that abutters will be notified consistent with the most conservative interpretation of the notification section of the city zoning code, so they will be notified. Also, the request for economic impact information is not before you for two reasons. Most, I guess, substantively is that the planning board, when they received your request for additional information and additional discussion on this topic, elected to instead introduce this alternate amendment. So that's why it is before you. And per the, again, the requirements of Mass General Law, when the planning board votes to introduce a zoning amendment, our job is to curry it to you, and so you have it. But the other challenge with that request is that the change that is proposed in terms of the zoning district encompasses such a broad range of possible either uses under the existing zoning or uses under the proposed zoning that it would be really almost impossible to objectively determine whether it creates for any particular parcel or more broadly in general, whether it creates in this case, a better economic opportunity for the properties or a worse, because there's such a trade-off in this case. If it were a case where we were taking it from a highly permissive district that allowed all kinds of commercial uses and industrial uses as well as residential to a district that only allowed single-family homes, it would be very easy to explain the economic difference between the two. But in this case, you're taking a district that allows a broad range of commercial uses that create a variety of property values depending on the size and nature of the parcel, to a different district that has a mixed use character to it, and again allows for a broad range of uses. And it would be very difficult to definitively tell you that one is more favorable than the other. It would be quite easy if you defined a particular use and said, how does this change impact a proposed use? But it's very hard in the abstract to give you the information that I can totally appreciate why you're looking for, but it's very difficult to provide.
Councilman Donta.
Oh, part of the reason I'm looking for is because it was in the original recommendation when it first came before us from the planning board. That I think that's one of the people who spoke about it at their public hearing had requested and had not yet been provided. Obviously, some of them, like you said, would be very difficult to ascertain, but maybe at least any differences in how the property would be assessed or any change in how they would be taxed as a result.
We can certainly provide a summary of the differences that would be associated with the change for the council.
And this is a reduced area, so it will involve fewer properties, so hopefully not as much work. But, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did look at the report that the planning board sent over here, and I guess on August 19th, they did hold a meeting, and they reduced the area to amend it to include a smaller area. And when they attached an alternative zoning amendment, it encompasses still business people. So I contacted a few of these business people, and from what I'm understanding, Councilor Mendonça is quite right. These people were not notified of this particular August 19th meeting, but somehow through the grapevine, word leaks out, and they did attend, some of them did attend this meeting. And on reading further, there was a vote, 3 in favor, 2 against. and yet it never mentioned anybody speaking in favor of it or opposed of it. So I'm thinking this is like the minutes of the meeting, and I know that there were two people that spoke in opposition because they're two of the business people there, and yet I see no mention of these two people that spoke in opposition. So I'm hoping that if this gets referred back to the planning board for a report and recommendation for November 12th, that whoever's doing the minutes of the meeting is kind enough to be up front with this council to say 3 in favor, 2 and I like to know these things. And reading it, you'd swear everybody was happy with it. Well, I know that it's infringing on a few more businesses, only not to a larger degree, but to a smaller degree. But I want to know what happened at this meeting. Thank you.
I believe communication was included in our packet that listed out the proponents and opponents. I at least have seen that. I'm not sure if
Well, I didn't see
anyone
it.
else has. Mr. Bakey?
Yeah, just for clarification, it's understandable that there might be a little confusion about the process of enacting zoning amendments, and this one in particular has become perhaps even more convoluted than Mass General Law normally requires. But if I can explain a little bit, or attempt to explain a little bit, the vote that the planning board took on August 19th was simply the vote to introduce an alternate zoning amendment. It was not a public hearing, which is why there is no record of a public hearing, but there is a definitive record of which planning board members voted to introduce it and which ones did not. But introduction is simply starting the process of discussing it. It is not in any way a vote of adoption or anything like that. The next step in the process, and again, it is a very cumbersome process in Massachusetts, the next step in the process is for it to come to the City Council as it is before you this evening. And again, you're not discussing the merits of it this evening. You're not holding a public hearing either. You are now referring it out so that the planning board may hold a hearing, and after a hearing, make a report and recommendation back to you. But you are also proposing to send this to your own public hearing at which you will hear testimony from folks. And only after all of those things have happened, all of which will include notification to abutters prior to the hearings, at that point, only at that point can the council actually consider whether this is a zoning amendment you wish to adopt or not. And you can make whatever choice you want at that point, after you have all that input. But we have not yet come to the place with this new amendment where there would be a meaningful opportunity for the public to participate. Prior to getting to that place at the public hearings, they will be notified.
Any further discussion? Councilor Martin?
Just, I think, so when the planning board introduces an amendment this way, we're required to send it for a report and recommendation, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, and then subsequent to that, hold our own public hearing?
Yep.
Okay.
You are not required to act if you don't wish to after your hearing, but you are required to at least hold the hearing.
Okay, fair, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have the city manager's portion of the agenda, communication from city manager, responses to city council motions and requests. Any discussion? Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. I had a question on the response to the motion by you, Mayor, for the stone building behind the Stocklosa School. So in the back paragraph, it says, DPW and Law recently completed negotiations and have apparently achieved closure with respect to the settlement. The agreement creates a timeline that should result in redevelopment of 251 Mount Vernon Street for commercial use by the spring of 2014. So does that, like I asked at the last meeting, do we have any say on the development of that building?
Mr. Bakey.
Thank you.
As is described in the memo, the party with whom the agreement has been negotiated was a party that previously owned property on the site that eventually became the Stocklosa School. And the city acquired their property by eminent domain, and they contested the eminent domain payment and their contesting of that threatened initially to hold up the ability to proceed with the Stocklosa School. This was back in 2000, I'm not sure, several years ago. And the law department and the DPD worked with them at the time and worked out an agreement which in principle, which would enable them to ultimately relocate their business into the stone building, and that allowed the Stocklosa School project to proceed on schedule, which was very critical in terms of meeting the maximum possible state reimbursement that we could get for that building. So, however, it has been a number of years and a lot of back and forth, and I give a tremendous amount of credit to the law department for their patience on this one in particular, to get to a place where we are now basically at closure on the details of this, which will allow that party to move into this building, hopefully again in the spring, as the memo states. They operate a music recording and practice studio business. And so that is the use that they are proposing, and that's what would go into the building. I think as we discussed at the last meeting, if there are particular restrictions or concerns that you may have, and we'd be happy to see if there's a way to include them, but at this point, obviously we're interested in achieving closure and moving ahead with this, what's now been a many-year effort to wrap this one up. But since we know what they want to do, if something you don't want to have happen there is not in conflict with that, I imagine it might not be a problem to be able to work something into the agreement that wouldn't happen, but it would have to be very specific, I imagine.
Okay. My concern was where it's on school grounds, that we not allow anything that go into that building that would endanger children. So it's very simple, and I didn't know if we had procedures or zoning or anything that we can put in place, or do we have anything in place that prohibits any type of business that would endanger children while it's on school ground? So that's my question.
We do have, there are a number of categories of types of businesses that have been identified by past city councils as being of concern in proximity to schools that are specifically called out with buffers in the zoning code. For example, adult entertainment businesses, tattoo establishments, narcotics detoxification. There's a broad range of things that are actually spelled out in our zoning code, all of which have buffers from schools and could therefore not be ever located in this building, no matter who buys it, under what circumstances or what terms, as long as there is a school in close proximity. The state actually has a number of laws that also create buffer zones around schools for various kinds of businesses that might be problematic. So I think, again, in general terms, I imagine we're pretty well protected in that regard. The only exception to that might be that certain types of businesses or activities that people might construe as being problematic but are constitutionally protected, and we have no local authority to regulate. So there's not much we can do about those anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Council Lowell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to, part of the manager's communications this week is the fall dedications. And I know I had some that I shared with Councilor Mercia. And I just want to thank the Board of Parks, the administration, Tom Belgard and his crew, the great job they did to put all these dedications together over the next 4 or 5 weeks. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We got a report back as to what qualifies for a 911 call, and it says that residents are advised to use 911 for any situation that requires immediate assistance from the police, the fire, or ambulance. And examples are a fire, a car crash, a medical emergency, and a crime in progress. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilman Donta.
Yes, in the packet, there was a reply to my motion requesting that DPD report on their economic development activities to the Economic Development Subcommittee. The response basically says that they'd be glad to do it, just need 2 weeks warning. So I just request that the chair of the Economic Development Subcommittee schedule a meeting and provide that information. I believe Councilor Martin is the chair. I'll refer that. Well, it's already referred to that subcommittee, but just ask that the chair schedule a meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Noon.
Mayor, there's also a report from the managers pertaining to the motion filed by you, motion A, which is the manager development on green infrastructure plans, and motion F, response F, is the involving the incremental storm water and all the. I would suggest that those two respond should be sent to the environmental subcommittee to have it further discussion on that. So,
Motion by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Any further discussion under city manager's communications? Entertain then a motion to accept the communications and place on file. So moved by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Leahy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have a communication to accept the resignation of Kate Lassard from the Immigration Commission. Entertain a motion to accept and place on file. So moved by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Kennedy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have an order for a 60-day trial. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Mercier. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. In City Council order pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 266 thereof entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations, temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. What's the wish of the council?
Move approval.
Move to approve by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. Roll call, please.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Mendonça.
Yes.
Councilor Mercier.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Noon.
yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have a vote to execute the license agreement with 495 Chrysler Jeep Dodge Incorporated for vehicle storage at the parking lot at Martin Alumni Athletic Complex. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Mercier, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title in City Council vote, authorizing the city manager to enter into a license agreement with 495 Chrysler Jeep Dodge Incorporated to use a portion of the premises located at 758 Rogers Street, commonly known as the parking lot at Martin Alumni Athletic Complex on Rogers Street in the city of Lowell for vehicle storage.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilor Laurie, seconded by Councilor Mercier. Roll call, please.
Mr.
Councilor
Mayor,
Elliott.
Excuse me.
Just a
Councilman
quick question.
Mendonça.
I'm just curious as to what the need is.
Excuse me?
I'm just curious as to what the need is for this, why
We have the
the
registered
business.
speaker.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Clerk.
Bill Tierney.
Yep, Bill Tierney from 495 Dodge. It's more or less just for snow removal. We'll just move the cars from our lot night before, bring them over there, and bring them back next day. That's all we can use it for. No customers, no, just snow removal only.
Thank you. Councilman Mendonça.
Oh.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what the need was. It wasn't made clear in the memos that we received.
Sure.
Thank you.
Councilor Mercier.
And my concern is, will you be parking on the grass over there?
No, just the pavement.
Just the pavement, not the grass?
It's more by the concession stand in that
Okay.
area right there.
All right, thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin. Councilor Mendonça.
Yes.
Councilor Mercier.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Noon.
Yes.
8 yeas.
Thank you. Next, we have a vote to incur liability for snow and ice removal. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. In City Council vote, that pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 31D, the City Council of the City of Lowell consents to incur liability and make expenditures in excess of available appropriations for snow and ice removal in the current fiscal year. What's the wish of the council?
Move approval.
Move for approval by Councilor Mercier,
Second.
second by Councilor Noon. Councilor Mendonça.
I'm just wondering, I think since I've been on the council, this is the earliest I think this request has been made. Has the money we appropriate, which is the highest I think in many years, all been encumbered at this point?
Mr. Moses.
No, it hasn't been encumbered. We're doing it earlier and earlier each year, really as a housekeeping measure, because once the snow starts to fly, we don't want to have to wait for a meeting and pull all pieces off the street. So whether we do it now, October, or November, really doesn't matter, but it just gets it out of the way.
Unless it's like 2 years ago and we don't spend the money. All right, well.
But we're under no obligation to spend this money.
All right, so this is just procedural. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Entertain a motion?
Already there.
Excuse me.
There is
Any
one.
further discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Leahy.
Yes.
Counselor Laurie. Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Madonza.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Noon.
Yes.
It's 9 yeas.
Thank you. Next, we have subcommittee reports. The first is Environment Subcommittee of September 12th, 2013. If Councilman Madonza would take the chair.
Mayor Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We held a subcommittee for the environment on the existing tree ordinance. There have been a number of issues with implementation of that tree ordinance that we've discussed back and forth with the administration. And so because of that, the administration has drafted up some new language that is more doable, I think, based upon the current funding for it. Previously, there were regulations that required that trees be replaced based upon the size of the caliper of the trees, and that wasn't something that the city, I think, could afford, and certainly something the city wasn't doing. So there are a number of goals that are laid out by the tree ordinance that I think the master plan has supported. And again, the ordinance wasn't really being followed, certainly to the letter, but not to the intent behind it either. So a number of recommendations came to the subcommittee so that we could be more in keeping with that spirit of the ordinance, and among them were replacing trees on a one-to-one basis unless the tree's caliper was 24 inches or above, in which case the trees would be replaced on a 2-to-1 basis. But one of the recommendations of the subcommittee, Councilor Laurie was in attendance, as well as the city solicitor and Mr. Martian from the city manager's office. One of the recommendations was to incorporate into the tree hearings that we currently have a planning process, so that the replacement for trees that are taken down are done in a way that are consistent with the goals of the tree ordinance, so that in the case where emergencies don't require a tree hearing be held, that you also have some kind of planning process where residents can weigh in on how they would like to see those trees replaced, and in that way you can get at adhering to the tree ordinance if these changes are adopted in a way that's a bit more incremental. Also, we had discussed really specifying within the language that's not there right now, but specifying when a urban forestry plan would actually be developed. In the current ordinance, it's supposed to occur each year. It doesn't. The proposed changes require that it occurs every 5 years. The motion would call for some honing down on when that would be required within after the adoption of the actual ordinance. So probably within at least a year at the most, really. Beyond that, there were some suggestions made about subdivision development review. One of the changes to the ordinance suggested that we actually do away with the provision in the tree ordinance to address that at that time. I think that needs to be looked at. And so a motion was made to refer it back to the law department and the administration for review again, to make some changes and then come back to the full council for a formal vote. And I submit that as a report of progress.
Any other further discussion? Councilor Mercier?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. In realizing that no one knows the future, but when the powwow oak tree came down, it's too bad we couldn't have just kept a large portion of it that was straight up, maybe about, I don't know, 7 feet or 6 or 7 feet. Because when you go on Loose Street and you see that the same thing in front of private property happened with a tree that probably was not fully healthy, and they cut it down to a point and they sculptured it to make a beautiful ornamental tree, and too bad we couldn't have remembered that and done that and put like a totem pole type of thing. That would have been magnificent, and it would have been structurally pleasing to the eye and left a historic tree somewhat in place, standing tall to some degree. So I'm sorry we didn't think of that, because that would have been a great idea. That's just something I just wanted to say. Thank you.
All right. Motion to accept the report of progress, which would include referring the draft back to the law department, by Councilor Laurie, second by Councilor Mercier. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Mayor Murphy.
Thank you. Next, we have the Neighborhood Subcommittee, which met on September 17th, 2013. Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Neighborhood Subcommittee met on September 17th. Myself, Councilor Laurie, Councilor Mercier. We had also present was City Solicitor, Councilman Donza, Noon, Councilor Elliott, Darlene Wood from Animal Control, and Frank Singleton from the Health Department. We had a number of speakers, about 10 speakers for, 3 speakers against the ordinance or the ordinance change. After much debate and after everybody was afforded the opportunity to speak, we came to the conclusion that we didn't feel that the city was ready at this time to enforce this for the protection of the city and its citizens and the animals. So we heard, as I said, from Mr. Singleton and from Animal Control, and they just felt right now there were too many questions for safety of the animals and safety of the people in the neighborhood. So there was a motion made by Councilor Mercier, second by Councilor Laurie, to recommend to not continue with the process to amend the ordinance and end discussion at this time. That was adopted 3 yeas on roll call. Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would just like to move that the City Council adopt the unanimous recommendation of the subcommittee.
Motion by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Elliott. Any discussion? No discussion? If Councilman Donza would take the chair, please.
Mayor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not in favor of this motion. I think it's premature. I think in a deliberative democracy, it's important that a decision follows the deliberation. And I don't think, while we've had substantial discussion about this, it hasn't really been substantive discussion. And, you know, it is something that I think needs some more discussion. I think that when you look at the master plan, which was adopted and which was based upon scientific surveys of the community, that getting beyond just personal opinions, I think it is something that warrants more exploration. We hear often from certain quarters that ideas are brought to the city council because that's what our constituents expect us to do. And I think that when that happens, it really deserves more discussion. And so I don't support this motion.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
I have a
Council
comment.
Mercer.
Well, first of all, we did do careful deliberation. We investigated many ways. We heard from many people, pros and cons. I've got information and comments without even looking for it in the supermarket, on the campaign trail, you name it, I got it. The overwhelming majority of people that I spoke to said to me, this is not Mayberry RFD, it is not USDA approved. This is a city of Lowell, and I don't want chickens aside of me. Having said that, I called different departments within this city, and I asked for their input privately. And I heard many different type of discussions that would lead me to believe that it would create a burden, an extra burden onto the city, in that we have enough on our plate without this issue. Having said that, at our subcommittee meeting, we had a man and his son come up to the podium, and they had gone to New Hampshire to a pig raffle, and they won one of the pigs. And they brought it home, and he said, if we can't keep this pig, my son will be devastated. He wanted this pig as a pet. He loves this pig. And then I read in the paper, he quoted himself in the paper saying, my son loved this pig. He wants to have it as a pet. And when it gets older and we can't handle it anymore, we'll eat it. And I said to myself, gee, that's a heck of an attitude to have for a pet. Gee whiz, I love my dog, but when it gets to be too old, we're having it for supper. I mean, this is a pig, and it is a pet, and I don't think I want to take my pet and have it on the plate for supper. Be that as it may, I think the recommendation of the subcommittee stands, and I would request a roll call on this motion and recommendation by the neighborhood subcommittee.
Councilor Lake.
Thank you. I just want to add also that, we did have 2 meetings. We heard from both sides. We all did our own homework, and we didn't say that this couldn't be brought up again. We just felt that at this time, the city is not ready to handle this. We shouldn't be creating ordinances that we can't enforce. So I think everybody was relatively, everybody was good-mannered toward each other. It was a good debate. At this time, we're not ready for it. Thank you.
Councilor Nunn.
Thank you. I did attend both meetings, and I know that people speak for and against, most actually for it, but also there's a number of community leaders spoke against it. At the end, the second meeting, the last meeting of the neighborhood subcommittee, I heard that at the end of, just about before the subcommittee deliberation, there was a compromise because as the chair of the subcommittee spoke, that is that they didn't close this issue, but this issue closed. Yeah, we may take up other day. The recommendation at that time was from the people who for this, that is the compromise way is to have a pilot on this. And I like that idea very much because it's kind of, for those who have done this and have experience in doing this and have the space for it, and to show the rest of the other people in the city who have space to provide. Of course, we're going to have a zoning and ordinance and all that things is in places. We're not just going to have everyone have chicken run around the city. Absolutely not. But for those who have this, who propose a compromise, a pilot project, would be a great idea to allow it to those who request the pilot so that the city can see that, yes, it works. It's not going to be harmful. It's not going to be smelly. It's not going to be a nuisance to the city. So I like that idea very much, but that idea was actually tossed out. So I just want to express my liking the idea.
Mayor Murphy.
Thank you. As a point of information, I do want to state that I never actually saw a final draft of any kind of ordinance. I mean, I saw a draft of ordinance changes that were kind of hastily put together because a subcommittee meeting was called hastily, but I never saw a final draft of any kind of ordinance changes, so I'm really not in a position to judge whether or not that ordinance could be enforced or not. And I think that's really the point, not whether or not you support some kind of changes in the ordinance. It's about whether there was enough time given to the process so that we could have an intelligent discussion about both sides and see whether or not it could work here in Lowell. Because I don't accept the notion that this city isn't prepared to do what other cities have already done. I think we're fully capable of that. It's a question of what we value, and that, I think, is open for discussion. But I don't accept that this city isn't prepared to enforce ordinances in a way that fulfills the goals of people here in the city and also protects people here in the city. Thank you.
Councilor Elliott.
Well, when this issue came up at the outset, I was opposed to it then, and I'm opposed to it now. Listening to the people, listening to constituents right off the bat is what we're supposed to do, and that's what I did. But I think in addition to listening to the people that put us here, you have to use a little bit of common sense as well. And if you're going to do something, enact an ordinance for some, then you have to do it for all. Now, maybe there are some sections, even in Pawtuckaville, that have plenty of land that could house a coop. But if you look and citywide, look at all the neighborhoods across the city, and is this a good idea for all of these neighborhoods? The answer is no. We're a very densely populated city. With chickens come many nuisances and problems. Maybe there are some that came and spoke that want it, but we have to make decisions and look at the entire issue, and it's not a good idea, in my opinion. We have many other issues to address, and this will bring problems that we shouldn't have to be bothered with. And I believe we have, those of us that oppose this have heard loud and clear. Residents don't want chickens. So I don't know why we're going to go through any exploration or any analysis when all we have to do is listen to the people, and that's what I did, with a little common sense. Thank you.
Roll call.
Counselor Elliott.
To support the motion not to move forward, yes.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Leahy.
Yes.
Counselor Laurie.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Medonsa.
No.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
No.
Counselor Nunn.
No.
6 yeas.
Motion passes. Mayor Murphy will resume the chair.
Next on the general
Mr. Mayor,
petitions.
I just had a few
Councilor.
items from the Transportation Subcommittee.
Okay.
Thank you very much. On September 30th, you're going to see the last public meeting for the Rourke Bridge. The final is coming in at 6:30 at Lowell General. That will be the final presentation from the group. In October 1st, Middlesex Community College is going to be coming here for subcommittee with Educational Partnership. It was originally scheduled for tonight, and we had to delay it. On October 15th, UMass Lowell will come here, both at 5 o'clock for the Educational Partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more subcommittee announcements? Moving on to general petitions, we have one claim for property damage. Entertain a motion to refer to the Law Department for a report and recommendation. So moved by Council Newman, seconded by Council Laurie. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Miscellaneous petition for CNF Realty Trust. Request the City Council extend the TTF zone to include adjacent parcels located at 122 and 130 Andrew Street and 180 Moore Street. Entertain a motion to refer to the Law Department to draft the proper ordinance. So moved by Council Laurie, seconded by Council Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have motions. First motion by Council Laurie, request the city manager have proper department conduct a study regarding the feasibility of placing sidewalks on Douglas Road and on Pine Street between Westford and Princeton Boulevard. Councilman Donza. Seconded by Councilman Donza. Council Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the first part of this motion, I don't know if it's even feasible. I know I received an email. We're doing a lot of paving up in that area, and someone emailed at least me. I don't know about the others. If we should have sidewalks on Douglas Road. I think this is a community discussion. I don't know if the people up there even want them. I don't know if there's been any safety issues, but we do have 2 schools up the street, and that was brought to my attention, which I did know. So I think it would be a good time while we are paving. I don't know, maybe people on Douglas Road do want sidewalks, but maybe it's time to have a public discussion. And on Pine between Westford and Princeton Boulevard, there is an area for a sidewalk. It was never paved. My understanding is the children have a hard time in the wintertime. So if we could look at putting a sidewalk there where there is a space already, if we could do that, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Council Laurie, request the city manager have proper department look into the possibility of placing stop signs on Shaw Street at various intersections that may require them. Seconded by Council Leahy. Council Laurie.
Thank you. This study was actually done by the traffic engineer, but what the residents in the Highlands want is traffic to slow down on Shaw Street. I don't know if it would be better to have a stop sign or 2. I'll leave that up to the traffic engineer, but I also know he's had some great ideas over the years on, at least my time here, on how to reduce the speed of traffic. So if we can do that, that would be fine too. The main objective is to slow the traffic down on Shaw Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Council Laurie, request the city manager have proper department look into the possibility of developing a local dollar program here in the city. Seconded by Council Leahy. Council Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A lot of communities have done this, and I know Worcester does it with what's called a Woo Dollar. We have 2 colleges in town. I know UMass has the U-Card. A lot of businesses in the city don't have the technology to accept it, but I've had discussions with Middlesex, who's coming here on October 1st. Their students would like a card where they could use it to different shops. So I'm wondering if the city of Lowell could partner with the university, with the college, and our own residents for a card that would probably offer discounts at maybe the museums, or the hockey games, restaurants, and things like that. A lot of cities have done this to promote business within their own community, and with the students and the people of Lowell, I think we have an opportunity. So I'm just asking that we look into the idea.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Council Laurie. Request the city manager have proper department consider designating parts of Fletcher Street as a school zone. Seconded by Council Noon. Council Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few years back, as we all know, they built the Merkland School there, and I've heard from residents in that area that it originally was proposed to be a school zone on Fletcher Street. I don't think it was ever really put in. We do have crosswalks for the children, especially down by Butterfield, and it's just the, and I know the state regulations on how far away from the schools you have to be, but this is a constituent concern, and I'd like the city to look into if Fletcher Street should be a school zone during proper times of the day.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Council Laurie and Council Mercier. Request the city manager have proper department install a gate or a fence in front of the bathrooms located at South Common Pool on South Street. Not requiring a second. Council Laurie, Council Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This week, Councilor Mercy and I both attended a meeting at the Bishop Markham, and they're having a lot of problems with the pool over there. The park programs are now done for the season, and they have people loitering. There's, when you look at the bathhouses from South Street, there's crevices. People are getting in there, they're having problems. And the idea is if we could put a gate or a fence in front of those crevices so people can't get in and create those problems, it's going to really increase the quality of life for the people over there in the Bishop Markham Street area. Thank you. Councilor Mercier.
Thank you.
Yes.
Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When people such as the homeless are displaced, as they have been in the past, some are helped, and the ones that are not, in some cases, are the ones that refuse the help. They tend to find another location. Well, they found another location, and that being the park at the South Common. Councilor Laurie and I did attend a neighborhood tenant meeting at Bishop Markham Housing Complex last Thursday, and the bathrooms on South Street was of their utmost concern, as well as the public drinking that's taken place there. It appears that the homeless are sleeping in both doorways of this bathroom complex, and I'm passing that picture around to my colleagues so that they can see where we're talking about that a gate needs to be. Only to wake up as the children are walking to school or to their bus stops and seeing the homeless relieving themselves on the sidewalk or in front of those doorways. This can only stop by placing some sort of an accordion gate or door or a bar across to make, so that they can bar access to their makeshift home. So I'm gonna leave this for the manager so he can see what we're talking about. They're using that as a place of shelter, and they're not very clean when they wake up and the children happen to be going to school, and they were concerned that if we bar off that access, they won't be tempted to go there. So I want to just admit this as part of the record.
Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Council Leahy. Request the city manager to have proper department revisit the signage on Varnum Avenue as it pertains to children walking to and from school. Seconded by Council Laurie. Council Leahy.
Thank you. If we could, we had a subcommittee meeting and a couple discussions on this, and if we could take a look at this. I don't think we put any signage up yet. This was very important to the neighborhood, so if I could get an update or, you know, whatever's happening on that. At the time, we talked about sidewalks, which weren't feasible right now, but not out of our minds, but we would like to see some signage. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Council Leahy, request the Neighborhood Subcommittee meet to generate new ideas for traffic solutions in and around the city, including but not limited to speeding, parking, and proper signage. Seconded by Council Laurie. Council Leahy.
Thank you. This goes with Council Laurie's motion, number 18. I think it'd be healthy to have a good discussion, try to get some fresh ideas, some new ideas, see what we can do to curb some of this speeding, parking on the sidewalks, and other issues in the neighborhoods. So I request that this pass and go to the Neighborhood Subcommittee.
Council Noon.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a great motion by Council Leahy. If we may add maybe also proper lighting. So let's go a whole lot, because what the neighborhood subcommittee addressing, those issues when you talk about speed, parking, proper signage, and then maybe proper lighting will be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Council Leahy, request the city manager have proper department report on procedures for posting signage on properties in accordance with building permits. Seconded by Council Leahy. Council Leahy.
Thank you. This motion, I went down last week and I got the ordinance on signage. We did have a report in our packet saying that, let's see, that actually came from your motion, Mayor Murphy. And the Zoning Board of Appeals did identify that the city signs code is ripe for improvement. So I want to just make sure that signage is proper. What brought this on was the sign that was up on Stedman Street, and I didn't feel it was appropriate. At a later date, the sign was redone. So now that I saw your motion come through, this will be taken care of, and we can have a good discussion and make sure that we just make things easier, spell them out, make them clear in the ordinance. That way it takes the burden off the building inspector, so they don't have to go up and inspect all these signs individually. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Council Leahy. Request the city manager of Lowell Police Department issue report regarding recent shootings in the city. Seconded by Council Noon. Council Leahy.
Thank you. Just with all the recent activity in the last few weeks, I know we've had numerous motions and discussions on this, but I'd like to get a report and specifically requesting what we can do to help the police department. If my colleagues feel that this could go for a discussion to an appropriate subcommittee, that would be fine too, but the purpose would really be to, let's come out of this with some improvements for the city, some good ideas, and let's work together and see if we can help the police department with whatever their needs are, so we can curb some of this activity in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Johnson.
Yes, I had an idea. I was going to put in a motion regarding the shootings, but maybe I can just, as a friendly amendment to this, request that they also provide a report on the feasibility of procuring and implementing a system that can detect the concussions of gunshots and actually can triangulate and determine where the shot was fired. And that way they get notified through the system before they actually get a 911 call, and maybe can react fast enough to catch them. So if the maker of the motion does not object, if I could just ask for that additional information.
Council Noon.
Yeah, it's along that line. I think it's the same thing as Councilman Donza spoke of, is what step is taken to address some of these issues, the recent shooting. Not just report, but also step taken. I know they probably have to redeploy and put more patrol in those areas to really, curb those issues of recent shooting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you. And in conjunction with this motion, I had a previous motion some weeks ago and I referred to the city manager and pleaded for him to put together some sort of a committee, not committee, but when we had gang member troubles years ago, we had a big gathering of all people, district attorney's office, everyone down at the federal building at Middlesex Community College to highlight and talk about it, come with ideas and strategies and things. I asked that in regards to the shootings, and I never heard another word about it. So I'm wondering, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the assistant to the city manager, if that's still gonna happen, or we're not gonna have anything. I don't know, but it's quite prevalent that, you know, we might have a shooting every 3 years, but we're having like one every 3 weeks, and it's becoming bothersome. It's becoming like a habit now. It's like I don't want the city to get used to this, used to this nuisance. This is death-defying, and I think it's something that we should all sit down and try to come up with a plan, ideas, whatever we need to do to be on the same page. And I know people aren't mind readers and psychics, but we should be trying to figure out what we can do to stop this. We have to stop this. So I just want to know where that motion went.
Mr. Martian.
I'll take a look. Was this a formal motion? I'm sorry, Counselor. Was this a formal motion put in for convening a meeting?
Were you here? It was a few weeks ago, weeks ago.
It may be still.
I thought you were sitting there. I thought you were here.
Sometimes I wonder myself.
So what are you saying?
Probably still in development.
What are you saying?
Take a look. If it was only a couple of weeks, then I would imagine that it's in the works.
Henry, what are you saying? When I speak, you don't listen?
No.
What's up with that? No, I'm only kidding.
You might have caught me on
a
run out to, but we'll take a look at the motions, and if it's only a couple of weeks, it's in the works.
Okay, just teasing you. That's all right.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this motion as amended? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Those two motions are mine. If Councilman Donson would take the chair, please.
Next motion by Mayor Murphy. Request city manager explore creation of one advisory sustainability commission with 4 green building, recycling and composting, bicycle and pedestrian, and food security subcommittees to better implement the vision of our master plan. Seconded by Council Noon. Mayor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Some time ago, Councilor Kennedy had made a motion, I'm not sure Henry had listened maybe to him, to look at the Green Building and Recycling Advisory Subcommittee to see whether or not we should actually keep that or to just do away with it. But I think it makes sense maybe to have something that's more effective by reorganizing those two committees with 2 more, the bicycle and pedestrian, the food security, which a number of people have approached me that we create some kind of committee to that effect. I think it might work better so that we're working toward implementing that master plan, but in a coordinated way with a number of people and I think we'd be able to fill that better, perhaps, than the 2 current commissions or committees. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Last motion of the evening by Mayor Murphy. Request city clerk work with administration to develop transparent and coordinated process for scheduling and posting public meetings. Second by Council Martin. Mayor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion speaks for itself.
Any further discussion? Council Leahy.
Could you, I'm just curious, could you just speak a little bit on this? What does it mean by, public posting of meetings? I thought they were posted pretty well, or is it not transparent enough?
Mayor Murphy.
Sure, I stand corrected. The motion doesn't speak for itself. This is really just to ensure that when we're scheduling public meetings, that the city clerk and all the departments understand who's booked the rooms and what's happening, so that we don't end up with situations where, public meetings that have already been scheduled are pushed out into the hallway or into other spaces. This has occurred a couple of different times. Subcommittee meetings that have been scheduled where somebody's already booked a room, or somebody's already scheduled a different subcommittee. So I think, there needs to be some better coordination there, and this is simply asking for it. Thank you.
Any further discussion or questions? Mr. Marshall?
I'm sorry, I know I don't want to delay, but I just want to go back, and I apologize, Council Mercy, for my confusion earlier. There was a motion on August 27th, a couple of weeks ago, regarding that. It was in combination. There was a couple of other motions similar to that on public safety, and it looks like the response and the work on that is upcoming soon.
All right, sorry for the interruption. Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Motion to adjourn by Councilor Laurie, seconded by Mayor Murphy. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.